This is the Kevin Trudeau Show.
I am exposing the corruption in government and in major multinational corporations. We're telling you the things that they don't want you to know that will make your life better.
Welcome, everyone. Kevin Trudeau here. Everything they don't want you to know about. What a great show we have today. How to make $25,000 a month online in your underwear, working 10 hours a week. Stay tuned. I'm going to tell you how to do that today. I'm also going to share with you some of the news from around the world that they don't want you to know about. And I have the articles proving all of that is true. News articles that they don't want you to hear. News information. But I'm going to start off with health. Thus, natural cures, natural health expert, author of Natural Cures They Don't Want You to Know About, Kevin Trudeau, the best-selling natural health book of all time. Over 50 million copies sold, was number one on the New York Times best-selling list, 26 weeks in a row. Got a brand new version of that book coming out next year. Brand spanking new. The drug companies are shaking in their boots. The food industry is shaking in their boots. The government, the Food and Drug Administration in America, and their counterparts around the world are shaking in their boots. And you are popping champagne, because I'm going to be sharing with you a bunch of new stuff next year in that book. But I want to talk about, first off today, something that is completely misunderstood, one of the greatest pharmaceutical scams of all time. Many of you, and the producer of this show, the president of the Kevin Trudeau Show, one of my dearest, closest friends, we've known each other for 30 years, John Denny, is one of these guys who has been suckered in completely to, my doctor tells me to do it. It's called cholesterol drugs. So let me give you a little education about cholesterol. The doctor will tell you, you want to have low cholesterol. And cholesterol has LDL, which is low density lipoproteins, and HDL, high density lipoproteins. So you have cholesterol, and that cholesterol breaks down into LDL and HDL. And the doctors will tell you, you want to have a low cholesterol count. And most importantly, you want to have a low LDL count. And the ratio between the LDL and the HDL has to be a certain amount. Because the doctors will tell you that the LDL cholesterol will attach itself to the artery wall. So you have blood going through the artery, and the LDL cholesterol attaches and then begins to block your arteries, slowing down the blood flow. When the blood flow is impeded because the LDL is attaching on both sides, you get blockages. When the blood flow goes down, you have poor circulation. You get cold feet. If you get a sore on your foot, it doesn't heal very quickly. Your skin begins to sag. Guys can't get erections. They have erectile dysfunction. Your brain doesn't get enough blood or oxygen, so you start getting dementia. And you're tired, you don't sleep well, you're irritable, you gain weight, and of course, you could have a stroke or a heart attack. And you have a heart attack because the artery gets completely blocked, the blood can't go through, you have a massive heart attack, they open you up, and they give you triple, quadruple bypass surgery. And so the doctor will say, in order to prevent your arteries being clogged by the cholesterol, we're going to take some cholesterol tests. And if it's high, we're going to prescribe to you one of the cholesterol-lowering drugs to prevent heart disease. Because the cholesterol-lowering drugs reduce cholesterol. That all sounds good, doesn't it? All right, Kevin, that's logical. I have high cholesterol. The cholesterol attaches itself, so I want to lower it. So there's less cholesterol to attach, and that will prevent the arteries from getting clogged. So let's go through a couple questions. Doctor from Harvard cardiologist. I have a question. Yes, Mr. Trudeau. Is there anybody out there that has like 600 cholesterol counts and doesn't have any blocked arteries and never has a stroke or heart disease and doesn't have any erectile dysfunction? Well, actually, yes, Mr. Trudeau. There are people all over the world that when we draw their blood, they have the highest possible cholesterol counts, 600, 700, 800. And they have no heart disease their entire life, and they live to be 90 years old. So why are you prescribing a cholesterol-lowering drug if a guy has a 240 cholesterol count? Well, Mr. Trudeau, the reason is I am a medical doctor, and I am not going to get sued for malpractice, and I am not going to lose my license. So I have a protocol, and that protocol is effectively written by the government and the drug companies. The drug companies want the protocols written so that I will prescribe more drugs. So therefore, if you come into my office and I draw your blood and you have a 240 cholesterol count, I, by law, have to prescribe to you cholesterol-reducing drugs. Whether you take them or not is your own business. But I'm going to tell you you need it, and I'm going to put it into the file and say, I told the patient he needed this. I tried to encourage him to take it, and I even wrote a prescription for him. But he never followed through. And then if that patient has a heart attack, he can't sue me for malpractice, and I won't lose my license. Makes all logical sense now, doesn't it? It's about the money, isn't it? So the real question is, does cholesterol-lowering drugs reduce the chances that you will have a heart attack? Let's go to the experts. Mr. Statistician expert on the data, Sloan Kettering Institute, Harvard University. Does cholesterol-reducing drugs reduce cholesterol? Yes! But does cholesterol-reducing drugs reduce the chance that you have a heart attack? No! You didn't know that, did you? It will reduce cholesterol. The drug will reduce cholesterol, but it doesn't reduce the likelihood that you're going to have a heart attack or a stroke. In fact, let's go back to Harvard University Medical School. How about Johns Hopkins Medical School? Does the cholesterol-reducing drug cause damage to the liver? Yes, it does, 100% of the time, Mr. Trudeau. And what does that cause for the patient? Well, number one, they gain weight. Number one, they have hormonal imbalances. They can get Dupuytren's contracture. They can get arthritis. They can have a whole host of autoimmune diseases because the liver is one of the most important organs in your body. And when you take in the cholesterol-reducing drugs and it's damaging the liver, clearly, it's having an adverse effect on every other health issue in that patient. Now, by the way, I am not a doctor. Do not follow any advice that I give you. Always check with your American Medical Association or whatever country you live in, government-authorized medical doctor, and always listen to the drug companies. Do not listen to Kevin Trudeau. I'm only giving you this for entertainment purposes and informational purposes only. And I am exercising my First Amendment constitutional rights of free speech. Hang him! Calm down. Put a muzzle on him. I know, throw him in prison. Somebody's watching. Jesus Christ. doing the same thing that caused him to get thrown in prison the first time. You're goddamn right I am. I'm doing the same thing. Exercising my First Amendment constitutional rights of free speech, and every person in the world has to stand up to tyranny. Every single person has to stand up to the suppression of the free flow of ideas. Every single person should stand up and not put up with censorship by the government. They want to control you. Have fun doing it. You don't have to get upset. Maybe for a second. But then relax and have some fun. And we are having fun. So let's talk about this cholesterol. Does LDL cholesterol, the low density lipoprotein, Kevin, does it actually attach itself to the artery and actually does cause some blockages in people? Absolutely 100% yes. Okay, so how come if a person has 600 or 700 cholesterol counts, they don't have any blockages, some of those people? And how come some people who have really, really, really low cholesterol counts, how come they have complete blockages? See, that's another fact that nobody will tell you. The amount of cholesterol you have in the blood does not matter, because some people who have very, 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 very low cholesterol counts still get blockages. The LDL still attaches itself to the artery wall, and the arteries will still get 100% blocked. And then some people have really high cholesterol counts, lots of LDL, they don't have it attaching to the artery, and their arteries are always wide open. So it's not the amount. The reason the doctors tell you this is because the drug companies want to sell Lipitor and the different cholesterol-reducing drugs, and they want you to take these drugs every day for the rest of your life. It's a great profitable business. And it's also an additional profit because they know that if you're if you're ignorant enough. Oh, wait a minute. I use the word ignorant, right? Ignoramus. And somebody wrote in the chat, a better word would be naive. Do you have the definition, Trey, of the word naive? Because I don't want to call you stupid, nor do I want to call you, if you're taking some of these things, a moron, and I really don't want to call you an ignoramus, which is accurate. You're ignorant. But here it says a person showing a lack of experience, wisdom, or judgment. So denoting art, well, forget the art one. Okay, so that's kind of naive. So naive is somebody who doesn't have experience, wisdom, or judgment. Show the word ignorant, because I think actually ignorant is better. Then I can call you that and you won't be offended because you're thinking, well, that's an accurate definition of who I am. Here's ignorant. Lacking knowledge or awareness in general understanding, unsophisticated. Lacking knowledge, information, or awareness about a particular thing. Okay, so you're a combination of naive and ignorant. Listen, you take cholesterol reducing drugs because you're ignorant. You're lacking knowledge about that particular thing. I'm giving you this knowledge for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. Do nothing that I say. It will cause danger to you. I am warning you. Follow the advice of your licensed healthcare practitioner and always listen to the government only. Do not listen to me. I am just having fun today, right? Okay. So let's go back to the LDL, low density lipoprotein, part of the cholesterol. So why is it that some people have very low cholesterol counts and they have massive blockages, complete blockages, they need triple bypass surgery, and some people have massive amounts of cholesterol in their bloodstream, their arteries are wide open. The LDL never attaches itself to the artery. Why is that? Here's why, ladies and germs. The LDL cholesterol is good for you. The HDL cholesterol is good for you. Cholesterol is a blessing. It's good for you. It's part of God's creation. We're supposed to have it. It's how our body operates. It's a fat and it's wonderful and it does all these amazing things with the brain. It does all these amazing things on regulating hormone balance. It does all these amazing things for producing testosterone so the guys are virile and you don't need Viagra. I can't believe the amount of people, the percentage of males today over 30 years old who need erectile dysfunction drugs. It just cracks me up, man. It just cracks me up. I get friends of mine who are like 65, 70, and we joke. Do you take any of that stuff? The guy goes, nope. I'm like, I can get like that 2 times, 3 times a day because my wife loves me. I go, yeah, you're a man. Because he's not an idiot. He's not an ignoramus. He's been educated on ways naturally to keep his body healthy and virile. He's not taking drugs every day. As a matter of fact, doesn't take drugs at all. The drugs will cause you to become impotent. And then you need Viagra, Cialis, or whatever they're selling now. So the cholesterol is good. So here's how it works. The LDL cholesterol is so good for you, it will save your life. That's why it's there. So here's what happens. The LDL cholesterol is floating through your bloodstream, and it has a job to do. It says, I am an LDL cholesterol. And my job is to make sure that my person stays alive and is healthy. Oh, what do you do, Mr. LDL cholesterol? Well, when I'm floating through the arteries and the veins and all that stuff, if there's any damage to the artery, if it's scarred, do you know if the artery is scarred, the person can die? Because if it breaks through, the person can bleed internally and they'll die very quickly. So I'm on the lookout. The LDL cholesterol is talking here. The LDL cholesterol says, I'm on the lookout as I'm going through the veins and the arteries, and I'm looking for any damage to the artery or the veins. And if I see any scarring or damage, I sacrifice myself and I jump and I attach and patch it up. And then I stay there to make sure that the wall is now solid and healed and it won't rupture. And so that the person won't bleed internally and die. LDL, Mr. LDL, Miss LDL, Mrs. S. LDL. You are an amazing, amazing lifesaver. Well, thank you very much. Yes, I am. And I get a bad rap, but I'm doing a good job. So here's the point. The LDL cholesterol will only attach itself to the inside of the artery if the artery is damaged. And it's saving your life. But if the arteries continue to get damaged, then it continues to pack on again, pack on again, all throughout the artery. And then the artery begins to get clogged, and now you're in big trouble. So here's the question. The question is, what causes the artery to get scarred in some people and not others? Good question, and I'm glad you asked. There are 3 main causes of scarred arteries. The first one is homogenized dairy products. That means milk, cream, cottage cheese, ice cream, yogurt, butter, cheese. If the milk has been homogenized, it's going to cause scarring of the artery. Why? Way back, a long time ago, there used to be a milkman. And the milkman used to come every day, make deliveries. And the reason is, he would pick up milk that was freshly squeezed. Squeeze milk? Brian, what do you call that? Brian knows, he used to work on a farm. Milk the cow. You milk the cow, you don't squeeze. Okay, well. All right. So the milk that has been milked, the milk that has been milked, the cow that has been milked delivers milk fresh in the morning. And then the milkman would pick it up. It would be in glass bottles, and he would come and he would put it out in the milk box outside your house, and it was kind of cold. Hey, there's the milkman there. See the milkman? Yeah, there was a lot of children born, and the milkman were always suspect because the wives were home alone while the guy was at work, and a lot of kids in that neighborhood look sometimes like the milkman. Depends on the milkman and the wives, I suppose. But anyways, we used to have a milkman. But the reason you had a milkman is the milk was milked, squeezed in the morning, and it was delivered. And if you remember, the cream separated from the milk. So you had this glass bottle of milk, and the cream would float to the top, and then there'd be milk in the bottom. So you had to shake it up. Because it was broken up, the reason it was broken up is because the molecule sizes were all different. And once the milk got exposed to air, it began to oxidize, which means break down. And after about 48 hours, the milk went sour because it got rotten. It got spoiled. That's why you had to have a milkman. He would make milk deliveries usually 2 or 3 times a week. So you always had fresh, good tasting, not sour, not spoiled milk. The milk producer said, what can we do to make milk so it doesn't go bad very quickly? In other words, what can we do so that when we get the milk out of the cow, we can put it in a container, send it to a grocery store, and it can sit there for 3 weeks and never get sour and not go rancid and not get spoiled. It's called increasing the shelf life. Because we can make a lot more money. We don't have to employ the milkmen. We can have our products just in the grocery store. What can we do? And so this great scientist said, well, the reason the milk goes sour is because the large clusters of molecules begin to break down, and that turns it rancid. So since there are 2 basic sized molecules, the cream molecule and the milk molecule, one is heavier or larger and lighter than the other. That's why it floats. That's why the cream would float. If we break all the molecules down, if we break down the molecules in the cream and break down the molecules in the milk and make them really small so they're all the same size. Homo means the same. Homogeneous. If we can make them homogeneous, homo being the same, if we make the molecules homogeneous or all the same size, then there's nothing to break down. If they get exposed to air, it's not going to break down the molecules because we already broke it down first. Therefore, it won't spoil. It should have a longer shelf life. So they came up with a process called homogenization. Again, homogenization, starting with the word homo for the same. So homogenization is the process of making all the molecules homo or the same size. And that's why you can buy milk in the store, and that's why it can last 3 weeks when back then it couldn't. The problem with homogenization is when you break down those molecules, that's not what nature intended you to consume. Nature intended you to consume the goat milk, the buffalo milk, the cow milk, as it is. And your body then breaks down the molecules. When the molecules are already broken down into these very small itty-bitty molecules, it creates something called xanthide oxidates, which are like little knives. So when you put some cream in your coffee, when you eat a piece of cheese, if you get a hamburger with cheese on it, if you have some cottage cheese, if you have some yogurt, if you have some buttermilk, if you have some butter, all of that has come from milk that has been homogenized. You are putting these knives in your system. And guess what these little knives, these xanthide oxidates do? They scar your artery. That's why if you go back, before homogenization, you had much lower heart disease, much lower blockages. Nobody had the problem because their arteries weren't getting scarred. So what is the solution? The solution, I'm going to give you a couple solutions, but the first solution is ideally you buy milk that is not homogenized. Now, I happen to buy a milk, I think it's called Kalata, K-A-L-O something. Maybe you can find that. It's a non-homogenized milk. They happen to sell it here. Throughout the United States and throughout the world, it's generally difficult to find milk that is not homogenized. And the milk that I buy, there it is, that's what I buy. Organic, cream top whole milk, because it's not homogenized. So the cream will actually be at the top. So when I open it up, I actually have to take a knife and like push down the cream, and then I have to shake it up, and sometimes the cream stays in clumps. So it takes a little while for the first round to get the cream integrated with the milk. And then I use the milk, whether I'm cooking or baking, and people at the house sometimes like that, in their coffee or tea. Sometimes they have some other things that they use it for. But that's like making a protein shake or something like that. So that's what we use. So the number one thing is if you're going to buy dairy products, and that particular brand also has half and half. They have cream, they have whipping cream, they have cottage cheese, and it all is from non-homogenized dairy product. That's 100% organic. That's another story, but that doesn't have anything to do with the heart disease or the cholesterol. It's the homogenization, which is the most important thing when you're talking about scarring arteries. So number one, stay away from dairy products that have been homogenized. And it's pretty much impossible, quite frankly, because if you're going to go out to a restaurant, you're stuck. You're going to get a hamburger, a cheeseburger, you're stuck. So you kind of do the best you can. Don't be that fanatical about it, but ideally stay away from any type of homogenized dairy product. So that's a brand that I use, and I can get cottage cheese, I can get yogurt, I can get butter from that company. So if you get butter non-homogenized from milk that has not been homogenized, and ideally from grass-fed cows, because that has also a better component, so it's going to be better for your heart. When it comes to cheese, the key word you look for is raw. So it's raw cheese or cheese from raw milk. Raw, if it uses the word raw, it means two things. It's not homogenized and it hasn't been pasteurized. So that's beautiful. And for those of you who live in Europe, in France, in Switzerland, most of the cheeses there are raw. In America, you're screwed because America has the worst food on the planet. And that's why we have the most illness and disease per capita than any other country in the world. And that's why people take more drugs in America than all the other countries in the world combined per capita. It's not even close. So raw cheese, non-homogenized dairy. So that's number one. Kevin, what else scars the arteries? You said there were three things. Thank you for asking. The second thing that scars the arteries is trans fats, sometimes called hydrogenated oil. Now, this is the best part. This didn't exist 50, 60 years ago. Back in the 20s and 30s, there was no such thing as trans fats. But there was a couple guys, one by the name of Kraft, who started a little company called Kraft in America. And he invented Kraft American cheese, which really isn't cheese. He actually had to pay Congress to allow him to call it cheese because it's not cheese. It's oil. It's mostly oil. And what he did is he came up with oil, and he came up with a process where he spins the oil down and breaks it down into these tiny molecules, very similar to the homogenization process they use for milk. But he did this with oil. So this way the oil wouldn't go rancid, and it was also homogeneous and would create a texture that was smooth and silky. Thus, American cheese, when you melt it, it's very silky, or Velveeta is very silky. These are some of the two biggest poisons you can put in your body and will give you heart disease. Please have some more. We need to take you out of the gene pool. Okay? Eat some more. Please, have another helping. Hurry up. I want to see the heart attack in action. So, hydrogenated oil, unfortunately, is in everything. Peanut butter, your children. You are killing your children. You're making them obese, and you're screwing up their hormones. Hydrogenated oil has all these type of negative effects, but let's just talk about the heart. The hydrogenated oil or trans fat scars the artery, just like the xanthine oxidates in homogenized milk. Scars the artery. So if you go and you look at your salad dressing, look at your peanut butter, look at everything, you're looking for the words hydrogenated oil or partially hydrogenated oil. Depending on what country you live in, the label may also say trans fats someplace, like what percentage of trans fats or how many grams of trans fats are in it. Trans fats, hydrogenated oil or partially hydrogenated oil, it's killing you. It's giving you heart disease. It's setting you up for stroke. Does this say trans fat? There you go. Partially hydrogenated vegetable oil. What lovely product is this, by the way? Is this like a cracker or something?
It's a serving of cookies.
Oh, some cookies. Have some cookies. Give some cookies to your children. Why don't you give them some arsenic? How about some cyanide at the same time? You wonderful parents. Hey, I'm only saying this out of love because you are ignorant right now. You're a little naive, but mostly you're ignorant. You're not stupid. You are smart and intelligent because you're watching this show. You would not be watching this show if you were stupid, if you were a moron. But you're watching this show, you might be a little ignorant on some things, just as I am. By the way, somebody always says, Kevin, you make fun of it. Who's the biggest ignoramus amongst us? I will claim that title. That means I am ignorant probably of more things because I know that I don't know what I don't know. So I absolutely am always saying, what does that mean? What is that? I never heard that before because I understand I am ignorant about a lot of things. Doesn't offend me. I'm proud of the fact that I don't know what I don't know. And I take full ownership of that in a good, positive way. So trans fats are killing you. They're in virtually all of your food in America and around the world. Now, here's the funny part about it. Years ago, there was a company called McDonald's. And McDonald's had arguably the best tasting French fries you could buy. Because Ray Kroc made sure the French fries, I believe, came from Idaho. And he had a real specific breed of potato. And he had a real specific way of cutting the potato, the exact size. He was fanatical. And this way of freezing the potato. It was a certain method so that when he would put that frozen potato in oil, it would crisp up beautifully. And the inside would taste good and be perfect texture. And the outside would be crisp. And it was like a perfect French fry. It was the best tasting French fry according to people. Do you know what he cooked the French fries in? What the oil was? Do you guys know? Brian, do you know? No, you don't know, right? Okay. Beef fat. Beef fat, which is an outstanding oil to fry in, just as duck fat is. Because they have a high flash point, which means you can crank up the heat. It's not going to smoke. It doesn't go rancid. It doesn't burn. And it gives it in parts, whatever you're frying, whether it's fried chicken, you use beef fat or duck fat for fried chicken, or you use duck fat or beef fat. Those are the two most tastiest ones for French fries. It's going to taste delicious. But there was this idiotic, and these people were stupid. They said, oh, these are the same people who said, don't use paper bags, use plastic bags because we want to save the environment. Don't use paper because you're going to cut down the trees. Use plastic so that we can ruin the oceans because plastic that breaks down. Anyway, so these same idiots said, don't use beef fat because that's an animal product. Oh my God, we don't want that. That has saturated fat. Saturated fat's bad for you. And I said, why? Why is saturated fat bad? Because it is. Well, what does it do? Because it's bad. You don't want that. And the guys who were pushing that had hydrogenated oil ready to sell them. So they got everybody suckered into believing that saturated fat's bad. So McDonald's, in order to succumb to this media barrage of propaganda and lies, they switched from the healthy, delicious tasting beef fat to unhealthy, trans fat laden vegetable oil from genetically modified Monsanto produced oils. So now when you have your French fries and all your fast food joints, none of them use beef fat anymore. They all use trans fat laden, hydrogenated, partially hydrogenated, genetically modified oil that all goes rancid anyway. And when you eat it, you are just clogging up your arteries, and it doesn't even taste any good. So stay away from trans fats. What's the third thing that's blocking your artery? Chlorinated water. Chlorine. Back during the Vietnam War, there were 17-year-old kids who were given M16s. They were not allowed to drink alcohol because they weren't old enough, because they weren't responsible enough to drink alcohol. But they were given an M16 and told, kill human beings. You're old enough to kill other human beings, but we'll throw you in prison if you have a beer. That's another story. So these 17-year-old kids went over to Vietnam, and they had canteens. And the water over there was hard to come by, so a soldier might have to go into a river or a lake and get some water. And if they drank it, they may get dysentery, they could pick up some viruses or bacterial infections. It could be a big problem. So they were given chlorine tablets, because the chlorine does a good job of killing all virus and bacteria and making the water relatively safe to drink. You're not going to die immediately from dysentery, and you're not going to pick up some parasite and that could kill you, or just make your life miserable because you'll be shitting your pants all the time and throwing up and getting a fever and all this other stuff. So these soldiers, 17 years old, 18 years old, 19 years old, would put the chlorine tablets in the water, and they were told, you put the chlorine tablets in everything you drink just in case. So 6-8 months, these kids would put chlorine tablets in their water and drink the water. They didn't get dysentery, they didn't get an infection, they didn't get a parasite, so that was good. Unfortunately, many of them got killed, and they were shipped home, and many of them were autopsied. When they were autopsied, the surgeons were amazed to find 70 and 80% blockages in the arteries in their heart. This is within 6 or 7 months, my friends. 6 or 7 months of putting chlorine in the water created that much blockage, because the chlorine was put in a water tablet, was put in the canteen. They just drank it. It didn't get a chance to evaporate or burn off, so they were putting a lot of chlorine in their body. That chlorine scars the artery. And then the wonderful LDL is doing its great job by patching it. But then every day they're scarring it again. They're scarring it again. They're scarring it again. They're scarring it again with the chlorine. And the LDL just keeps patching it, and the artery just gets all clogged up. So here's how this is affecting you. Tap water. Now, putting chlorine in city water, in municipal water supplies, is really a smart, good thing, because it does kill all the bacteria and viruses and parasites. So that's great. But the problem is you don't want to consume it. So before you consume it, you want to take it out. So this is why in your home, you don't want to be drinking tap water unless you have a whole house water filtration system that gets the chlorine out. Some people have a reverse osmosis filter that gets the water out. I prefer spring water, which is why I don't drink any of the water in my house, even though I still have a whole house filtration system with an ultraviolet light and granular activated charcoal impregnated with silver and a post and pre-filter. So I have all the water go through all this filter. So there's no chlorine anyway. But I prefer spring water, which is no chlorine in natural spring water. So you need to have either drink spring water only, which is why when I go to a restaurant, I always say, do you have bottled still water? Or bottled flat water, depending on where you live in the world. Bottled spring water. No ice. I don't want the ice because the ice comes out of their ice machine. It's loaded with chlorine. Next. Oh, by the way, I say this, and then I see this person who I explain this to. I'm at their house. I go, yeah, I have spring water. Then I'm going to make some coffee, and they use tap water. I go, wait a minute. Why aren't you using the spring water for the coffee? Well, it's coffee. The chlorine's still in it. So if you're making soup, tea, or coffee, don't use tap water. You're still putting it in your body just because it's been colored with coffee. It's still got chlorine in it. Plus your coffee's going to taste better. So don't drink tap water, restaurants, or anywhere. Here's the other problem. If you buy something at the store and it has a liquid, let's say you buy some spaghetti sauce at the store in a jar, they put water in it, and they're putting water with chlorine in it. And let's say you're buying a soup. Let's say you go to Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or a coffee shop and get a coffee. It's got chlorine in it. Okay, you can't be perfect. I get that. And you can't be fanatical. I get that. And I'm not fanatical. I just do the best I can. So stay away from ingesting any water that's from a municipality because it has chlorine in it. But there's something else that most people don't realize. The largest organ in the body is the skin. Whatever you put on the skin is going to be absorbed into the skin. So that means if you take a bath, if you go in a hot tub, if you go in a swimming pool, if you go in a steam room, if you take a shower, the water which hits your skin is absorbed into your skin. If that water has chlorine in it, you are filling your body with chlorine and clogging your arteries. Which means if you go in your hot tub, or if you go in the swimming pool at your gym or health club, and you can smell the chlorine, they have to put it in. And thank God they do, because otherwise germs are going to be passed between people. Which is why if you have a home, you want to use either a salt water swimming pool without chlorine, or I had a freshwater pool. Number one, I filled the pool after it came out of my house through my filter, so there was no chlorine in it. And then my filtration system I had installed had ozone and oxygen. So it pumped ozone and oxygen into the water 24/7. That killed any virus or bacteria, kept the water sparkling clean. And when you jumped in, you're basically, instead of putting chlorine into your body, you're filling your body with oxygen. So it was actually therapeutic and healthy, almost like getting into a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. Okay, a little expensive, but hey, I'm just giving you all the options here. So those are the three things. Okay, but here's the most important one. I called up and I looked for a Harvard-trained cardiologist, a top doctor, top guy, heart surgeon, trained at Harvard Medical School, cardiologist, world famous, good. So I go in and I said, I want to get a CAT scan on my heart with contrast, and I want an ultrasound on my heart, and I also want a full body vascular test. And he said, why? What symptoms are you having? Are you having chest pains or anything? I said, no, I'm not having any symptoms. He goes, well, insurance is not going to cover that. I said, hold on a minute. Oh, ow, oh, man, I'm having a hard time breathing. And I get all these chest pains. And I got this numbness down my left arm. And he just smiled at me going, he punches it into the computer, goes, insurance will now cover it. That's a joke, by the way. My insurance company, if you're watching, this is a complete joke. This is called a radio bit. This thing never happened. This is completely a made-up story. Just realized that. Anyway, so I told the doctor, I said, look, I want these things because unless you look, you don't know. He goes, well, I ran your cholesterol numbers. They're at 225. you want to be at 220, so I'm going to prescribe Lipitor. Of course he would. I said, why? He said, because you want to reduce your cholesterol so you don't get blockages. I said, well, let me ask you a question. Do I have any blockages? And he says, well, I don't know. I said, why don't we look by doing a CAT scan with contrast, an ultrasound, and a vascular test? I said, because at my age, if I don't have any blockages now, then in the next 10 years or 20 years, I'm not going to get any blockages either. And he just looked at me like, that's true. I said, but you don't do that, do you? You never, ever call for a CAT scan with contrast, an ultrasound, and a vascular test on a patient. All you do is a cholesterol test. And the only time you'll do those tests is when the guy comes in and he has symptoms. When he has chest pains, when he has a hard time breathing, or if he has numbness or tingling down his left arm. That's true. I says, isn't that stupid? I says, you know, I have a car. I bring my car into the dealership and I say, I want a tune-up and I want everything checked. I want you to check the brakes. I want you to check all the fluids. I want to check all the bearings, check the tire pressure, check everything in my car. Every single thing to make sure everything is at perfect optimal levels. And if it isn't, then we'll discuss whether I want to put a new one in now or wait. I bring my car in when it's running perfect. I don't wait for my car to break down and then bring it in, because at that point it could be too late. I like to prevent. My body is the same way. I say, look at my arteries now, because if my arteries are 60% open after all these years of living, I'm not going to change anything, and I'm not going to be taking any cholesterol-reducing dumb medication. It doesn't make any logical sense. So he ran all the tests, and he said, well, he said, your circulation is perfect. It's like an 18-year-old. You have de minimis calcification or blockages in your arteries. He goes, that's like a teenager. And your ultrasound, everything is working absolutely perfect. Your resting heart rate is like an athlete. Your blood pressure is perfect. He goes, but I'm still going to recommend you take the cholesterol-reducing drug because you're at 225. I said, I can't believe you just said that. And he just smiled. And he goes, I'm putting in my notes that I told you and gave you that recommendation because I have to. I said, I get it. I get it. It's sad. It's sad, but I get it. So here's the point. If you do the things I recommend, less homogenized dairy products, less trans fats, less chlorine, can't be perfect. But what I suggest everyone do is go to their doctor and request a CAT scan with contrast, a full vascular test, an ultrasound on your heart. And this way you will know right now how your arteries are doing. And somebody says, well, Kevin, what if it's bad news? What if it's 70 or 80%? That's not bad news, that's good news. You just saved yourself maybe from getting a heart attack and dying. Now you know. So I am not a medical doctor. Don't do anything I tell you in this show. So for educational and entertainment purposes, I will say that if it was me, I would go in and get intravenous chelation. If I had blockages after I had my test done, and by the way, this is not the first time I've had this test done. I get this test done every 10 years. That way I can track where we were 10 years ago, where am I today, where's the trajectory. Then you could see where am I going to be 10 years from now. So if it was me and I went in and he said, you got 40%, 30%, 50%, 60% blockages, Kevin, what would you do? Well, don't do what I would do, but I'm just going to tell you because it's, First Amendment free speech protected. What I would do is I'd find somebody who does intravenous chelation. Chelation means to claw. The most common intravenous chelation agent is called EDTA, which is an amino acid. And you basically sit in a nice room, nice comfortable chair. They got TVs, but you can bring your little device and watch whatever you want. Some of you might even read a book. And you sit there for like 2-3 hours. They put an IV in your arm or your hand. It's painless. And they have a bottle. And slowly it drips this EDTA in. And you do that 3 times a week, 4 times a week, 5 times a week. Depending where you go, they'll give you a recommendation on the number of treatments. Sometimes it's 30, 40, depending. And then that is going to claw and open up the artery. And interestingly enough, when I talked to this Harvard medical doctor, I said, what do you think of intravenous chelation? You know, there's been a lot of books written about it by your colleagues at Harvard medical doctors. And he says, yes, I'm not an expert in it at all, and I can't recommend it. But I know, he says, and I use the word know, I know it works. So that is the natural cure for this. Then you go back 3 months later and say, I want another CAT scan with contrast, another vascular test, and another ultrasound. And then the doctor will be amazed and going, well, before you had 60% blockages, now you got 15% blockage. You've now cured, you have nothing to worry about for the next 30 years, and go get a test every 10 or 15 years and see how you're doing. I'll tell you what, something like that's going to prevent stroke, heart disease, potentially. Your guys and women, your sexual desire, activity, pleasure is going to go up dramatically. Your skin's going to look better because the circulation's going to be better. You're going to have more energy. You're going to sleep better. Your mood's going to be better. The hormones are going to be all balanced in the system. It's going to be like complete night and day. So that's my thing on that. I was going to talk about high blood pressure today. I'm just looking at the clock and I just don't have time. All right, so the next show I do, I promise you I'm going to talk about high blood pressure because it falls into the same category. If you're on high blood pressure medication, you are not stupid. You're not a moron. You are simply a little naive and ignorant on some of the facts that I will share with you about blood pressure. I'll give you one of them right here. Actually, I got it over here. Okay. One thing about blood pressure is an article came out and it was squashed right away. Arm positions commonly used for blood pressure checks lead to inaccurate results. When you get your blood pressure checked, when they do the test, the arm position will show that you have higher blood pressure than you really do. This way they can say, you need blood pressure medication. It's a great business model. I mean a great business model. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. That's like you bring your car into the mechanic and the unscrupulous mechanic takes a spark plug out and then goes to you and go, listen to this. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, you're going to need a major overhaul. That's going to be $2,000. You pay the $2,000. All he did is put the spark plug back and then, you're a sucker, right? Same thing here. Oh, look at the test. You definitely need high blood pressure medication. So I'm going to talk about high blood pressure medication in the next show. I did mention I was going to also talk about how to make a lot of money. And I don't have, I'm not, okay, I am going to tell you something though. And I got it right here. I think I have it right here. Yeah. All right. So making money, which I'm going to talk about also in the next show at length, but I'm going to give you a little bit here. There's a couple articles that says how I built my side hustle, how I built my side hustle and paid off my student loan debt. This particular article talks about this individual who basically on her own figured out that I can start selling some things on Etsy and on Amazon, and I can work 10 hours a week. And it says here, she generated $236,000 in 2024. She brought in $236,000 deposited into her bank account in 2024. That's over $26,000 a month, working roughly 10 hours a week. So I'm going to talk about how you can do that. I'm actually teaching in December, right here live, and I'm recording it. 9 hours. It's 3 hours, 3 days in a row, 9 hours of training on basically how to make 50 grand a month without ever leaving the house, in your underwear, working 10 hours a week. And it consists of 3 major parts. One is communication, because you have to know how to communicate. Number 2, copywriting. You have to know how to do copywriting. And number 3, the techniques and methods of online marketing, using Etsy or Amazon or setting up your own landing pages and how to do that. And I'm just going to walk you through these simple steps. So if anybody wants to come live, you can. There's some openings. It's going to sell out probably next week or so. Or if you can't come live, I am recording it. And as soon as the event's done, it's going to take about a week to get it edited. We'll also have subtitles in various languages. We will then email it to you so you can watch it in the privacy of your own home. So if you want more information on that, let's throw up the website there, Trey. Just go to trudeautraining.com/ is that a backslash?
Forward.
That's a /. Of course it is. See, I'm ignorant when it comes to slashes, // or backslashes. But this is a // everybody, and I want to educate you a little bit about the difference. So if it goes to the right, it's a // and therefore if it went to the left, it would be a / Say, well, you didn't know that. And I didn't know it either. I'm ignorant. So trudeautraining.com /, right? / It goes forward. 3 seminars. THREE seminars. And that'll take you right to the page. You have all the information, and if you want to jump on that, that'd be terrific. All right, I'm going to leave you with one last thing here, which you are going to love. Oh, you're going to love this. Out of the Kevin Trudeau, GuruKev. Well, actually, no, it's like Zorro. Nobody knows who GuruKev is. Nobody knows who GuruKev is. I mean, there's some ideas, that it's Brian, but people have said that. GuruKev, a great and all-powerful guru, has a lesson called Affirmations of Truth. And as I read these, I'm going to increase the vibration of each one and put it out to you. So get ready to be hit with some powerful kung fu. Okay, Affirmations of Truth. Remember, nothing is impossible for the man who believes in himself and his dream. Believe and you receive, doubt and go without. Focus, concentrate, pay attention. Smile, and the world smiles back at you. Whatever you want, give it away first. You can if you think you can. Life is how you choose to see it. Life is how you choose it to be. Life is what you make of it. No one can upset you unless you allow it. You always have 100% control of how you think and how you feel. You can have everything in life you want if you just help enough other people in life get what they want. Talk about others as you want them to talk about you. Embrace every day and every moment. Live your life with passion. Never, 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 never give up. Shoot for the moon, for even if you miss, you will still wind up amongst the stars. Everything will always be fine in the end. If things are not fine now, it just means it's not the end. Never stop dreaming. You can do it. Much love, GuruKev. Thank you, GuruKev. I'm Kevin Trudeau. This is the Kevin Trudeau Show. I hope you feel better now than when you started watching the show. Make sure you subscribe to the show, like the video, leave comments, share it with everyone you know, and I'll see you next time right here on the Kevin Trudeau Show. Everything they don't want you to know about. Much love.